What is up, everybody? It's Dynamic back here again with another MLW video. Now, earlier this year, about 3 months ago, I dropped a video called The Fall of the Metro Magic, and it was a video where I pretty much just talked about how they kind of fell off since the World Series. And in that video, I explained that there wasn't really a lot that they did roster change-wise to kind of fall off. It was just that the league was adapting, and they weren't adapting with it. But with the Cobras, it seems like there's a little bit of self-sabotage, along with some bad decisions from manager Drew Davis that have led them to this point. This season, they are already at 2-4, which isn't by any means a terrible record or anything, but it surely isn't amazing, and with a lot of fans and players thinking that they will be the worst team in the league, if you look at just fan interactions as well as the manager polls, there are some things that definitely need to be changed about this team. But before we start talking about how the Cobras fell from a World Series appearance to just a couple years later being one of the worst teams in the league, I want to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. We are now officially on the road to 700 subs, so if you love MLW, definitely subscribe. You can always unsubscribe if you don't like my videos, and it's free, so definitely subscribe if you like MLW. Now let's talk about the prime of the Coastal Cobras, as in 2022 the Coastal Cobras made it to the World Series. Now, they would go on to lose against the Diamondbacks, but they were still an incredible team with a Cy Young winner in Brendan Baranowski, as well as a manager of the year in Drew Davis. And this team had a really good core. I would say that Sawyer Bian was the runner-up rookie of the year, especially this year because Jordan Robles was just so dominant. I think Sawyer Bian would have won in almost any other draft class. But this team's core consisted of manager Drew Davis, Sawyer Bian, Brendan Baranowski, Sean Flynn, and Andy Durand. This was a team that was full of depth. They could all hit pretty well, as you can see right here, and they had a pretty good culture, as most of them would get very excited for each other if they made a great play, and overall, it was a lot of fun wiffle ball to be seen. Now, like I was saying, this team did go on to lose in the World Series in a game that was a pretty big blowout, and the Diamondbacks did sweep them, so I think there's a lot of people that think there were other teams in the league that would have given the Diamondbacks a better game, but regardless, this team made the World Series. They made it happen. They were really just 1 or 2 pieces away from doing the same thing next year. So what happened? There are certainly some things you can point to see why the Cobras went 4-11 the following year, despite going 10-5 and making the World Series the year before. But I think it's a combination of a bunch of little things mixed with some chemistry issues, or I guess you could call it some just differences in the locker room. There are rumors about Sawyer Bian being unhappy with the way Drew Davis ran his team and the way the team worked. Now, this is just speculation, but I think it is worthwhile to point out. Also, one of the more solid players on the Coastal Cobras at this time, Andy Durand, was out for the entire season, just taking a break, so that didn't help their roster at all. And lastly, they whiffed on a late round pick drafting Chris Baranowski, brother of Brendan Baranowski, who didn't really do anything for his entire career. All these things led to the Cobras having a bad start, and from this point they couldn't really pick up any momentum. Well, now I think it's a good time to talk about Drew Davis and how he dealt with the following offseason, because he made some pretty interesting trades that you can say helped the team in some ways, but for the most part killed a team that made it all the way to the World Series the next year. Now, you can say that this team was going downhill anyways and Drew Davis made a change. That's something I commended him, that he could at least see that the team wasn't heading in a good direction, so he tried to mix things up. That's something I agree with. I think good job, Drew. That's the right move, but I don't think he went about it in the right way, and I'll explain now. In the offseason leading to the 2024 season, Drew Davis trades All-Star Sawyer Bian and in exchange gets Brendan Zerleg. Now, at the time, every single MLW fan could see that this was a bad trade, but looking back on it, this might be the worst trade in MLW history. Sawyer Bian right now has a case to be the MVP in coming years. He is one of the best young players in the league, and he fits this Coastal Cobras team perfectly with his energy. I don't understand why they would trade him for a player who can't hit super well and is probably regressing. Now, don't get me wrong, Brendan Zerleg started picking it up when he got traded to the Cobras, but he had nowhere the effect that Sawyer Bian had on this team, And even if Sawyer Bian did secretly request a trade or there was something happening in the background, I still think that this trade could have been done a lot better. But at least the Cobras still have the second overall pick, right? Well, no, because they decided to trade that as well in a 3-team trade where they ended up getting Caden Irwin and the 6th overall pick. Looking back at it, Caden Irwin and Justin Esch for just giving up the 2nd overall pick, in my opinion, isn't that bad of a trade, especially considering Caden Irwin is one of the best pitchers in the league right now, and I'm a really big fan of Esch, so I actually think that this trade panned out, but at the time, this didn't look good either, as Caden Irwin wasn't an amazing pitcher, he just became one as he went to the Cobras. Now, you can give Drew credit for seeing this in a player, I certainly will, but I also just have a couple questions about why Drew did this. I think he thought if he just changed up his team a lot, that things would start to suddenly get better, but things just got worse. Now, you can say that the Cobras did make the playoffs this year, which they did, but they had the 2nd worst record in the entire MLW. And yes, they did upset a Magic team, but that Magic team was on the decline, and in my opinion, it wasn't the most impressive playoff win we've seen from them. They only finished with one more win in the regular season, which is still an improvement, but it's marginal, especially considering you traded away one of your young players who would have given you more wins in the future. But now let's fast forward to the 2025 season, where a lot has gone wrong for the Cobras. Both of the Baranowski brothers have retired from the MLW, which might be a blessing in disguise considering they were both kind of on the decline as they were exiting the league, but that means that Drew Davis has to pitch. He could have avoided this by drafting a pitcher instead of Cole Kwiatkowski, but I guess he decided the extra hitting would be more beneficial, especially if he would bet on himself. This would be a move I would totally be in support of if Drew Davis wasn't such a crazy pitcher. I mean, he just throws a lot of balls and he walks a lot of guys, so hopefully he can improve, but as of right now, it's not looking too bright for the Cobras, who sit at 2-4. I explained this in my last video, but I think that the Cobras' best hope right now is that Drew Davis just starts pitching decent and that Caden Irwin has a complete takeover on the mound. So far, he's doing a good job of that. That's the only reason they've won 2 games. But the Cobras' hitting is actually good enough to be a playoff team, and a competitive one at that. Drew Davis, even though he has his biggest hits against Game 2 pitchers, is still one of the best hitters in the league. I'm excited to see what Cole Kwiatkowski can do and see how Justin Esch will progress, and Andy Duran isn't that bad either. We haven't seen much of Sean Flynn this year, but I think that once he comes back, he can help this team as well. He kind of reminds me of a slightly worse version of Alec Warda, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they can bring some things together. Maybe they'll trade for a better Game 2 pitcher. It's all in the hands of Mr. Drew Davis, and we'll see what he does. I'm still confident in his ability as a manager, but I do scratch my head from time to time when it comes to decisions that he continues to make, especially as the MLW community continues to look at the Cobras right now as one of the most interesting teams in the league. This is Dynamic. Thank you for watching, and peace.